Jambavan warned, this Rakshasa should be regarded with great caution and suspicion. Likewise, Menda advised he should be thoroughly interrogated before any decision is made. The ever wise Hanuman, gifted in the art of speech, then said, we do not have time to test Vibhishana. In my opinion, he has come here in all sincerity, hoping to take shelter of Lord Rama. He has understood that Ravana is wicked, and that Rama is the supreme emblem of purity and righteousness. His peaceful demeanor and considerate speech indicate the honesty of his purpose. For a deceitful person cannot remain so composed. It is not possible for anyone to fully conceal his inner intentions. The facial expression always gives some clue into one's thoughts. I think Vibhishana should be accepted as our ally without reservation. Although Rama was pleased by Hanuman's statement, Sugriva said, since Vibhishana has deserted his half brother at a time of adversity, it should be understood that there is no one he would not betray. Rama then replied, I believe that Vibhishana has genuinely rejected Ravana. Such dissension often occurs in royal families. Let us welcome him as our ally. Still unconvinced, Sugriva meekly protested. He may have been sent by Ravana. Therefore, to be safe, we should immediately capture and kill him. If we accept him, he may turn on us at any moment. Rama smiled and said, do you truly think this Rakshasa could hurt me? With the mere tip of my finger, I could kill all the Rakshasas and demons. Please listen as I tell you the following story. Once there was a hunter who caught a pigeon in his snare. Afterward, he took rest under a nearby tree. The wife of the captured pigeon was residing in that tree. Upon seeing that, upon seeing that the hunter had come to her house, she offered him ample hospitality. Indeed, she had nothing else to feed the hunter. Indeed, since she had nothing else to feed the bird offered him her own flesh to fulfill her obligation to receive a guest. Rama continued, O Sugriva, since a mere bird acted in this way, what can be said of a man like myself? There are many places in the scriptures where it is stated that when an enemy arrives with folded hands, he must be protected by all means. The great sage Kandu has commented that it is only out of fear or folly that one would act otherwise, thus incurring sin. Moreover, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it is my eternal principle that if any living being takes shelter of me, even once saying, I am yours, then I reward that person freedom from all fear. Even if Ravana were to come here to surrender unto me, I would give him all protection. Sugriva's heart became filled with love upon hearing Rama's sublime statement. With tears in his eyes, he admitted, O Rama, your words and deeds are always just befitting your supreme position. I too feel that Vibhishana is sincere, therefore let friendship be made without delay. After being assured of safety, Vibhishana descended to the earth and fell down flat at the lotus feet of Lord Rama. In a mood of full surrender, he explained, I am the youngest half brother of Ravana, and my name is Vibhishana. Although I instructed the Rakshasa king for his benefit, he rebuked me harshly. Therefore, I have abandoned my home, family, and possessions, and left Lanka to engage in your unalloyed devotional service. I now place my life in your hands, and beg you to bless me with your causeless mercy. While lovingly gazing upon Vibhishana, as if drinking him in with his eyes. Rama requested him to describe the strengths and weaknesses of the enemy. In reply, Vibhishana said, because of receiving benedictions from Lord Brahma, Ravana has become immune to death at the hands of demigods, Gandharvas, Daityas, Danavas, and Nagas. Indeed, he cannot be killed by any creature except human beings, whom he considers to be too insignificant. Ravana's younger brother Kumbhakarna is as huge as a great mountain and as powerful as Indra. The commander in chief of the Rakshasas is Prahasta, who once vanquished the Yaksha hero Manibhadra at Mount Kailash. Likewise, there is Ravana's son Indrajit, who is equal to his father in all respects. He wears impenetrable armor, and after propitiating the god of fire, he is able to make himself invisible on the battlefield. There are millions of other Rakshasas headed by Mahodara, Mahaparsva, Akampana. All of them are very fierce and can change their forms at will. Rama then said, O Vibhishana, I am well aware of Ravana's prowess. I give you my word that after killing him and all the other Rakshasa warriors, I shall install you upon the royal throne of at Lanka. In turn, Vibhishan assured Rama that he would help him to conquer Lanka. Rama was very satisfied with his devotee. After warmly embracing Vibhishana, he ordered Lakshmana to bring some water from the sea so he could immediately perform the installation ceremony. Upon seeing the extraordinary mercy of Lord Rama upon the Rakshasas, the monkeys became ecstatic and shouted with joy. Hanuman and Sugriva said, we feel confident about combating the Rakshasas, but we are perplexed about how to cross over the unfathomable ocean. Perhaps you can advise us in this matter. Vibhishana replied, I suggest that Rama call upon Varuna and the presiding deity of the ocean. Previously, his forefather Sagara excavated Varuna's waters and extended his domain. Because of his past service, the ocean will certainly help Rama accomplish his mission. Sugriva then relayed Vibhishana's idea to Rama and Lakshmana. Rama thought it to be a good idea, but nonetheless replied to Sugriva, I shall do whatever you and Lakshmana decide. Sugriva and Lakshmana readily agreed with Vibhishana. Thereafter, Rama sat down upon a kusha mat, his face turned toward the sea. Meanwhile, a spy named Sardula sighted the monkeys and reported to Ravana how the army had set up camp, covering an area of 80 miles in all directions. The perturbed Rakshasa king then ordered his envoy Sukha to approach Sugriva and deliver the following message: I have never done any harm to you. Therefore, why are you preparing to attack Lanka? Since the kidnapping of Sita has nothing to do with you, it would be better for you to return to Kishkinda and go on living peacefully there. Taking the form of a bird, Shuka flew to Sugriva and began to deliver Ravana's message while in the sky. However, as Shuka was speaking, some monkeys jumped into the air and captured him. Thus, while dragging him to the ground, the monkeys cut off Shuka's wings and savagely beat him. In great distress, Shuka cried out, O Rama, those who adhere to righteousness never indulge in killing an envoy. Rama intervened, and after being let go, Shuka once more rose into the sky, asking Sugriva if he had any message for Ravana. Sugriva replied, You may tell your master this. O Ravana, you are just like the stool of your dynasty, for you wish to enjoy the wife of another. Therefore, as a consequence, when my army swarms over the sea to Lanka, Rama will kill you and all your relations. Angada then said, This bird does not appear to be an envoy, but a spy who will convey information about our strength to the enemy. Therefore, he should be arrested at once. Taking this as an order, the monkeys again sprang into the air. Capturing Shuka again, they bound him with ropes. Shuka again appealed to Rama and he mercifully assured him he would be set free once they reached Lanka. Thereafter, Rama solicited Varuna, the presiding deity of the ocean, with folded hands. Rama was determined to reach Lanka by any means, and was prepared to kill the ocean god if he refused to cooperate. When 3 days and nights passed without any response from the ocean deity, Rama became greatly irritated. Addressing Lakshmana, he said, I can now practically see that in this material world, the good qualities of patience, forgiveness, and politeness are useless when dealing with persons bereft of all virtue. In this material world, such rascals give more respect to persons who are impudent, aggressive, harsh in speech, and who run about advertising themselves. Because of my mildness and forbearance, the ocean considers me to be important. Thus, he will not deign to come before me. Lakshmana, give me my bow, and I will teach this ocean a lesson. Watch as I dry up the water. Then the monkeys can march to Lanka on foot without difficulty. His anger blazing like fire, Rama strung his mighty bow and twanged it powerfully, causing the entire earth to tremble. Rama shot his arrows deep into the water, agitating the entire ocean, causing high, tossing waves and terrifying the entities living within, including the Nagas and Rakshasas. Then, as he invoked his supremely powerful Brahmastra, Lakshmana put his head on Rama's bow and said, My dear brother, please restrain your anger and do not release any more arrows. Surely there must be a more noble means for drying up the ocean and facilitating the monkeys to cross over to Lanka. Even the great Brahmarishis, from their vantage point in the sky, were terrified to see Rama's uncommon exhibition of anger. Ignoring Lakshmana's plea, Rama picked up the Brahmastra arrow and threatened the ocean. I will now dry up all your water. So all that remains is a desert of sand. O God of the sea, since you are too proud to render service unto me, I shall utilize my own prowess so that the monkeys can cross to Lanka on foot. As Rama drew his bow taut, heaven and earth began to tremble, and darkness enveloped the sky. Celestial winds raged furiously, uprooting gigantic trees and tearing off mountain peaks. Lightning streaked across the sky, as did hundreds of meteors, while thunder reverberated in all directions. The ocean overflowed its limit by 80 miles, filling all beings with terror. Still, Rama remained unmoved, fixed in his determination. Suddenly, the ocean god rose up from the water and appeared before Rama, surrounded by many serpents with flaming hoods. As giant alligators, tortoises, and fish were thrown up by the billowing waves, the ocean's presiding deity stepped onto the shore, followed by the presiding goddesses of such rivers as the Ganga and Sindhu, decorated with a garland of red flowers and golden ornaments, dressed in bright red cloth and encircled by clouds and wind. The ocean personified approached Rama with folded hands, saying, O all pervading Supreme Person, we are dull minded and did not understand who you are. But now we understand that you are the Supreme Person, the Master of the entire universe, the unchanging and original personality of Godhead. The demigods are infatuated with the mode of goodness, the Prajapatis with the mode of passion, and the Lord of hosts with the mode of ignorance. But you are the master of all these qualities, O gentle descendant of the Raghu dynasty. The earth, water, fire, air, and ether are all eternally imbued with their natural characteristics. As a great reservoir of water, I am by nature unfathomable and impossible to cross. I cannot be otherwise. O Rama, it is for you alone that I will make a special concession, enabling you to cross my waters. My lord, you may use my water as you like. Indeed, you may cross it and go to the abode of Ravana, who is the great source of disturbance and crying for the three worlds. He is the son of Vishrava, but is condemned like urine. Please go kill him and thus regain your wife Sita. O great hero, although my water presents no impediment to your going to Lanka, please construct a bridge over it to spread your transcendental fame. Upon seeing this wonderfully uncommon deed of your lordship, all the great heroes and kings in the future will glorify you. If you construct a bridge, I shall make it float by bearing its weight with my energy. Thus, your vast army of monkeys can attack Lanka and you can recover your dear wife, Sita. Standing with the Brahmastra arrow drawn back to its full length, Rama said, please tell me where I can release this arrow, for having fixed it upon my bowstring, I am unwilling to withdraw it. The ocean personified replied, to the north is a holy place known as Drumakulya, where a fierce tribe of sinful thieves called Abhiras now live. Because they drink ocean water there, I have become repulsed by their sinful touch. O my lord, I would be very pleased if you would let your powerful arrow fall there. Rama released his arrow as requested, making it fall at Drumakulya. The arrow pierced through the earth and brought all the water from Rasatal gushing up through the crevice, causing the entire subterranean region to dry up. The place where the arrow fell then became known as Marukantara, and Rama gave it the following benediction. The land will become verdant with fruits, honey, and all varieties of herbs. It will be excellent for raising cows, and those who reside here will have few diseases. The ocean personified then said, my dear Rama, here is Nala, the son of the celestial engineer and architect Vishwakarma. This powerful monkey is your great devotee. Indeed, he is as talented as his father. He can oversee the construction of your bridge, as I allow it to float upon my waters. The presiding deity of the ocean disappeared. Nala then came before Rama, and after offering his obeisances, he said, forbearance, conciliation, and gifts are wasted upon persons who are ungrateful. I know that Varuna has granted you passage only out of fear of punishment, and not from a sense of gratitude. My lord, long ago my father Vishwakarma awarded my mother the benediction that she would have a son equal to him in all respects. For this reason, I possess all of Vishwakarma's architectural and engineering skills. I am quite capable of building the bridge. Although I have these talents, no one knew of them before because no one had asked me about them. I do not like to speak of my own abilities. May I suggest that the monkeys start gathering the building materials so that work can begin at once? Under Rama's direction, millions of monkeys began the construction, and some entered the forests in search of materials. After tearing up great rocks, trees, and entire mountains, they brought them to the shore through the use of mechanical contrivances. Then, as the huge stones and trees were thrown into the ocean. The water splashed high into the sky, creating a magnificent scene as the rocks miraculously floated. The monkeys tied them together with heavy ropes and vines, making sure that making sure they were properly placed. While the construction was going on, Vibhishana and his ministers kept guard at the shore. Hanuman also carried large boulders and threw them into the sea. While doing so, he happened to see a squirrel kicking dust into the ocean in an attempt to assist the Supreme Lord. Move out of the way or you will get hurt, Hanuman told the squirrel. We are carrying huge boulders. What will your little dust accomplish? As soon as Hanuman said this, Lord Ram appeared and rebuked him, saying, Why are you saying this? Both the squirrel and you are serving me, although you are lifting mountain peaks, and he is moving small grains of sand. You are both doing your best. I therefore consider your service and his service of equal value. Very important. In this way, the bridge was constructed. It was 100 yojanas long and 10 yojanas wide. The surface was made smooth by placing the trunks of trees against one another. It was then covered over with tops of branches full of blossoming flowers. The demigods and great rishis assembled in the sky to behold. Sorry, let me just read the footnote. Srila Prabhupada comments: one feature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Ramchandra, is omnipotence. The Lord can act without regard to material impediments or inconveniences. But to prove that he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and was not merely advertised as Godhead or elected by popular vote, he constructed a wonderful bridge over the ocean. Nowadays, it has become fashionable to create some artificial god who performs no uncommon activities. A little magic will bewilder a foolish person into selecting an artificial god because he does not understand how powerful God is. Lord Ramchandra, however, constructed a bridge over the water with stone by making the stone float. This is proof of God's uncommonly wonderful power. Why should someone be accepted as God without displaying extraordinary potency by doing something never to be done by any common man? Let me repeat this line. Why should someone be accepted as God without displaying extraordinary potency by doing something never to be done by any common man? We accept Lord Ramchandra as the supreme personality of Godhead because he constructed this bridge, and we accept Lord Krishna as the supreme personality of Godhead because he lifted Govardhana hill when he was only 7 years old. We should not accept any rascal as God or any or an incarnation of God, for God displays special features in his various activities. The activities of the Lord are not common. They are all transcendently wonderful and not able to be performed by any other living being. The symptoms of the Lord's activities are all mentioned in the scriptures, and after one understands them, one can accept the Lord as he is. Then, end footnote. The demigods and great rishis assembled in the sky to behold the wonderful bridge spanning the deep, shimmering ocean. Sugriva then requested Rama and Lakshmana to mount the backs of Hanuman and Angada. Soon thereafter, the entire army consisting of billions of monkeys, began to march. Upon reaching Suvela Mountain at the far shore of Lanka Island, the monkeys became thrilled. As Sugriva set up camp, all the great demigods and rishis came and individually bathed the king and the monkeys with water from sacred rivers, blessing the king to obtain victory. Rama then embraced Lakshmana, saying, "Make certain that the army stays on constant alert, for I perceive evil omens foreboding the destruction of many great heroes among the monkeys, bears, and rakshasas. Indeed, just see how the fierce winds stir up clouds of dust. There are tremors in the earth, and dark clouds are raining blood. The evening twilight is heavily tinged with red, and the animals cry out pitifully, O Lakshmana, I think we should immediately begin our march on the city of Lanka." Thus, at Rama's desire, the army of monkeys departed. As they drew near Lanka, the Rakshasas could hear their loud roaring. While looking at the golden city, magnificently perched atop Trikuta mountain, Rama thought only of Sita imprisoned within. Rama then ordered the commanders to arrange the army in a human shaped formation, with himself and Lakshmana at the head. As they approached Lanka, the monkeys took up great trees and mountain peaks, while Rama sent orders to Ravana to release Sita or to prepare for death. So now we have crossed the ocean. Congratulations. So now I will request Shiv Kumar Prabhuji to continue the reading.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandat Pranams.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam. So you can continue reading, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu.
Hare
The monkey chiefs released the Rakshasa messenger in the form of a bird who immediately went to Ravana. When the Rakshasa king saw how Shuka's wings had been cut off, he laughingly inquired, "Who has done this?" Shuka replied, "I delivered your message to Shugriva, but the monkeys captured me and severely beat me. Then they cut off my wings. It was only due to the mercy of the virtuous Rama that I was released. O king, the army of monkeys has already arrived here to rescue Sita. You must return her to Rama or immediately attack the hordes of monkeys before they swarm over the boundary walls." Ravana angrily replied, "I will never give up Sita. I will kill Rama and all his monkey soldiers. However, I am quite amazed that these monkeys could build a bridge across the ocean. I want you and Sharana to disguise yourselves as monkeys and secretly enter the enemy's ranks to estimate their strength." Shuka and Sarana obediently went to the monkeys' camp, but because of the vastness of the monkey army now spread throughout the forests, mountains, and along the shore, the two spies could not even begin to estimate the number of soldiers. As they moved along, however, Vibhishana immediately identified them as disguised Rakshasas and captured them, taking them to Rama. Afraid of their lives, Shuka and Sarana stood before Rama with folded hands, pleading, "We have not come here of our own accord. We were sent by Ravana to ascertain the strength of your army." At this, Rama simply laughed and replied, "If you have accomplished your mission, then you can return to Ravana at once. However, if you have not yet completed your observations, then you can continue your tour without fear, guided by Vibhishana. In return for our hospitality, I only request you to deliver this message to Ravana. Accompanied by my army of monkeys, I will destroy Lanka and kill all the Rakshasas. Out of gratitude, Shuka and Sarana offered obeisances unto Rama, saying, May you be victorious. They then returned to Ravana and explained, We were captured by Vibhishana but then mercifully released by magnanimous Rama. Due to the army's vastness, it was impossible for us to estimate the extent of it. However, we can assure you that Rama, Lakshmana, Sugriva, and Vibhishana can uproot Lanka and carry it away if they so choose, even without the help of the other monkeys. Indeed, we are convinced that Rama could destroy Lanka and all the Rakshasas single handed. We advise you to return Sita to Rama and establish an alliance with him. Ravana replied, I will never give back Sita, even if all the demigods and demons combine together to attack me. You only speak such rubbish because you are afraid of being tormented by a few monkeys. What have I got to fear? Ravana climbed to the roof of his palace, accompanied by his two spies, hoping to gain a good view of the enemy. Ravana then asked Sarana to point out the chief monkeys. Sarana showed his master all the great heroes, including Hanuman, Sugriva, Angada, Nala, Mainda, Dvivida, Shweta, Panasa, Vinata, Gavaya, and finally Dhumra, the commander in chief of the bears, and his younger brother Jambavan. Sarana also described their physical characteristics and praised their incomparable prowess. The monkey army was so expansive that, in order to describe the extent of it, Sarana first had to explain the Vedic system of counting. He explained that 100,000 is 1 lakh, 100 lakhs equals 1 crore, 1 lakh of crores is called a Shanku, and 1 lakh of Shankus is called Mahashanku. 1 lakh of Mahashankus is called a Vrinda, and 1 lakh of Vrindas is called a Padma. With 1 lakh of Padmas equaling a Mahapadma, 1 lakh of Mahapadmas is called a Kharva, and 1 lakh of Kharvas is a Mahakharva. 1 lakh of Mahakharvas is called a Samudra, and 1 lakh of Samudras is an Ogha. 1 lakh of Ogas is called Maha-Augha. Sarana then explained that Rama's army of monkeys consisted of at least 100 crores of Maha-Aughas of soldiers. Seeing Rama, Lakshmana, and the other monkey heroes, Ravana became enraged. As Shuka and Sarana hung their heads, Ravana chastised them severely. Trying to restrain his anger, he said, You are supposed to be my ministers, yet you are ignorant of politics and are praising the enemy. Your speech is most unpalatable. I must be fortunate indeed to have retained my sovereignty for so long, guided by such ignorant fools as you. How can you speak so foolishly? Have you no fear of death? It is only the memory of your past service that keeps me from killing you this instant. Shuka and Sarana became ashamed to hear Ravana chastise them in this way. Hoping to pacify their master, they shouted, O king, may victory be yours, and then departed. Ravana ordered Mahodara to bring more spies forward. Soon afterward, Shardula and others arrived, pronouncing benedictions for Ravana's victory. Ravana ordered the spies to ascertain the enemy's plans. Then the spies circumambulated Ravana and slipped out to where Rama and the monkey soldiers were camped. Although the spies were disguised as monkeys, Vibhishana easily detected them as Rakshasas and arrested them. Then the monkeys surrounded them and beat them severely. However, when their plight came to Rama's attention, he mercifully ordered that they too be set free. Returning to Lanka in a stupefied condition, Shardula and his men came before Ravana and reported. The enemy army of monkeys is now encamped near the Suvela mountain. They are incapable of being spied upon. Just moments after our arrival, we were captured by Vibhishana and then bitten by the monkeys. It is only by the grace of Rama that we were released and able to return with our lives. O King, it appears that Rama is capable of destroying not only Lanka but the entire cosmic manifestation as well. You must either return Sita or immediately be prepared to fight with Rama's army before they reach Lanka's boundary walls. Ravana considered Shardula's words for half a moment and then declared, I shall never return Sita under any circumstance. Ravana asked for advice from his assembled ministers. Finally, he retired to his private rooms and called for Vidyutjiha, a Rakshasa expert in conjuring tricks. Ravana told him, I want you to create an illusory head of Rama and a perfect imitation of his bow and arrows. I am going now to the Ashoka grove to see Sita. You should follow me and remain hid then. When I call for you, bring your magical creations. Ravana went to the Ashoka grove eager to see Sita. He came before the anguished daughter of King Janaka and announced, Rama has been slain by my commander in chief. You should give up your stubbornness and become my beloved queen. I will tell you just how, I will tell you just how it happened. After Rama crossed the ocean, night set in, and being exhausted, Rama, Lakshmana, and the monkey warriors fell asleep on Lanka's shore. In the darkness, the great Rakshasa heroes went there and began slaughtering them all. Prahasta cut off Rama's head as he soundly slept, and Lakshmana, Hanuman, and the other monkey chiefs were killed as the others fled in fear. O noble lady, I have brought Rama's severed head here just to convince you that I am telling the truth. Ravana then ordered the Rakshasi gods to call for Vidyut The magician thus appeared, bearing an illusory head of Rama, along with his bow and arrows. Ravana then told Sita, Look, this is the bloodied head of your husband. Then turning to Vidyut Ravana said, Show Sita Rama's severed head. Let her see the remains of her mortal husband. Vidyut placed the illusory head at Sita's feet and hastily departed. Ravana then took Rama's illusory bow and arrows and threw them toward Sita, saying, Submit to me now, for you have no other hope. The illusory severed head had features exactly resembling Rama's. When Sita saw it, she cried out mournfully, O Kaikeyi, this is the result of your evil plans. Now your cherished goal is fulfilled. You must be very happy. Crying convulsively, Sita fell to the ground like a plantain tree uprooted by a strong wind. Soon she recovered and sat down beside the illusory head, lamenting. O Rama, without you I have become a widow. My life has come to an end. What greater calamity could befall a woman than the death of her husband before her own demise? Alas, I am most despicable, for it is I who have caused the death of my husband. It is for my sake alone that he crossed the ocean only to die without even a fight. Little did Rama know that when he married me, he wedded his own death as well. Surely, in a previous life, I obstructed the marriage of another girl. Thus, I now suffer in this life. O Rama, have you departed for the next world without me? Sita then said to Ravana, Please take me to where the body of Rama is lying. Then, as I place my body upon his, you may kill me so that I may attain the same destination as my husband. Just at that moment, a messenger arrived informing Ravana that Prahasta urgently required his presence in a meeting of his ministers. Ravana departed, and as soon as he was gone, the illusory head and bow vanished from Sita's sight. Entering the assembly, Ravana immediately ordered the Rakshasas to mobilize for battle. Without further discussion, they began preparations for war. Meanwhile, Vibhishana's wife Sarama came to console Sita. Sarama had already befriended her at Ravana's urging, for he did not wish Sita to die prematurely from grief. Sarama said, I was hiding behind a nearby bush and could hear everything Ravana said. I can assure you that Rama is not dead. The head you saw was created by Rakshasa conjurer's trick. In truth, Rama has arrived at Lanka with Lakshmana and the army of monkeys. They are now preparing to attack Ravana. That is why Ravana just left here in such an agitated state. He knows that he is unable to defeat Rama and the monkey heroes under his protection. Even from here, I can hear the Rakshasas making preparations. Soon there will be a great war between the two armies. Do not worry, Sita, for Rama will defeat Ravana without a doubt. If you would like to give Rama a message, I can deliver it for you. Sita was greatly relieved to hear Sarama's assurance. She requested her, "O Sarama, please try to learn what Ravana's plans are. Is he going to fight with Rama or will he return me to Rama?" Sarama went out and, while remaining hidden, overheard Ravana's conversation with his ministers. She returned to Sita and reported, as I listened, many of Ravana's elder ministers advised Ravana to return you to Rama, describing the unlimited prowess of Rama and Lakshmana. Even Ravana's mother urged him to make peace with Rama. Ravana, however, remained adamant. Therefore, I can understand that he will only give you up at the time of death. Even as the meeting was going on, Ravana could hear the sound of conch shells, drums, and other noises from the monkeys. Then Malyavan, Ravana's maternal grandfather, said, a wise king never fights with an enemy who has superior strength. Therefore, I advise you to return Sita to Rama and establish peaceful relationship with him. Otherwise, O Ravana, you may rest assured that virtue, having taken the form of the enemy, will conquer over your evil self. Prabhuji, should I continue? Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Okay, I'll continue reading. Because you have persecuted the great rishis, the power of their austerity is now aimed at you for your destruction. Furthermore, the benedictions you received from Lord Brahma did not give you immunity from death at the hands of human beings or monkeys. You should carefully consider the dangerous position you are now in. My dear grandson, you should heed my advice, for many inauspicious signs have already become visible, indicating the destruction of Lanka. Clouds are pouring down showers of hot blood. Our horses and elephants have tears in their eyes, and carnivorous animals freely enter the gardens of Lanka, crying out ominously. In their dreams, the citizens see black women with yellow teeth plundering their houses and standing before them laughing at them. Dogs are eating the sacrificial offerings, and different species of animals are seen mating with each other. Time personified, appearing in a huge black form with a shaved head, is seen peering into all the houses of Lanka every morning and evening. O Ravana, I considered Rama to be Lord Vishnu himself, appearing in the form of a human being. You must immediately go and surrender to him and rid yourself from this impending calamity. Sarama continued. Ravana could not accept this good advice. Instead, he angrily replied, "You are a rascal, taking the side of the enemy. You seem very eager to glorify the prowess of Rama, but what do you think of me? You must be praising the enemy because you are envious of me or because you have been won over to the other side. Perhaps you are afraid of him. I can assure you that you will soon witness the death of Rama by my own hands." Malyavan remained silent for a time. Then, after offering his respects to the king, he retired to his quarters. Ravana then made arrangements for Lanka's defense. He posted Prahasta at the eastern gate, Mahaparshva and Mahodara at the southern gate, Indrajit at the western gate, Shuka and Sarana and himself at the northern gate, and Virupaksha in the city's center. Then the king dismissed his ministers and retired to the interior of his palace. As Rama and the monkey army approached Lanka, they discussed how they could best besiege the city. Vibhishana said, "Along with my ministers Anala, Panasa, Sampati, and Pramati, I took the form of a bird and surveyed the military arrangements of Ravana. We now know how their defenses are laid out. My dear Rama, I am confident that just as Ravana defeated Kuvera by invading Lanka with 60 lakhs of Rakshasas, you too will gain victory with the help of these hordes of monkeys." Rama then ordered, "Nila will lead the attack on Prahasta at the eastern gate. Angada and his soldiers will fight against Mahaparshva and Mahodara at the southern gate. Hanuman will lead the attack against Indrajit at the western gate, and Lakshmana and I will contend with Ravana at the northern gate. Sugriva, Jambavan, and Vibhishana will stay in the center of our army to provide assistance wherever needed. I want only 7 of us to fight in the form of human beings, myself, Lakshmana, and Vibhishana and his 4 ministers. All others should retain their monkey forms, for that will allow us to remain distinguished from the enemy warriors."
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you so much for reading.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank you very much.
So, I'll request devotees if they have any questions, they can post it in the questions tab and I'll try to answer them to the best of my ability. Or they can request for access of the mic if they want to speak. Um, Now I'll request Shubhankar Prabhu if he can take over the reading. Hare Krishna, Shubhankar Prabhu. Hare Krishna. I have given you access. You can confirm the access. Okay, maybe there's some issue there. Uh, I'll continue reading it then. Okay. The sun was already setting when Rama, Lakshmana, and the monkey leaders climbed to the peak of Suvela mountain to spend the night. From the mountain top, they had a good view of Lanka, even though darkness had already set in. The city's innumerable twinkling lights made it appear as if it were suspended from the sky. The leaders of Rama's army could also see that the Rakshasa warriors were prepared for the upcoming fight. The next morning, everyone was amazed to see the heavenly city, complete with its array of flowering gardens, filled with celestial trees and singing birds. Lanka was beautifully situated on a leveled peak of the Trikuta mountain, measuring 100 yojanas by 100 yojanas. The walled city had an area of 20 by 20 yojanas, and in the center stood the magnificent palace of Ravana supported by 1,000 pillars. While gazing at the city and feeling great appreciation for its magnificence, Rama sighted Ravana perched atop the northern gate, with a canopy held over his head, being fanned by his servants. Sugriv ordered numerous monkeys ahead, jumping from mountain top to mountain top to occupy the outer gardens of Lanka. Suddenly he too sighted Ravana. Thus Sugriva impetuously leapt from the peak of Mount Suvela to where the Rakshasa king was sitting atop the northern gate. Gazing at Ravana with great disdain, Sugriva announced, I am a servant of Lord Rama, and I shall kill you this very day. Sugriva pounced on Ravana, knocking his crown off in the process. The surprised Rakshasa king then grabbed Sugriva and, while uttering similar threats, threw Sugriva to the ground. Sugriva, however, bounced up immediately like a rubber ball and in turn braced Ravana, throwing him to the ground with great force. A fierce wrestling match ensued as the two heroes scratched each other with their nails, covering them both with blood and perspiration. After striking each other with their fists and arms and wrestling for a long time, Sugriva and Ravana both fell down from the gate onto the ground, in the area between the boundary wall and the moat. Then, jumping to their feet, the two kings continued fighting, exhibiting all their knowledge in the art of wrestling. At last, when Ravana realized he could not defeat Sugriva with mere physical strength, he called upon his mystic powers. Understanding this, Sugriva decided to abandon the fight. He bounded into the air and immediately returned to where Rama was staying. Sugriva was now feeling blissful at having performed such a heroic feat, and his followers responded by jumping excitedly. Embracing Sugriva in love, Rama mildly chastised him, saying, You have acted foolishly, for you dared to do something without my sanction. Besides this, a king should never take such risks, because the death of the ruler is a great calamity for the entire nation. O Sugriva, if Ravana had killed you, then I certainly would have slain him in retaliation. Then, after installing Vibhishana upon the throne at Lanka and Bharata on the throne at Ayodhya, I would have given up my own life for having allowed you to be killed in my presence. Sugriva replied, After seeing the rascal Ravana, the abductor of Sita, I could not bear to simply ignore him. Rama said, Regardless, you courageously displayed your heroism, and all the monkey soldiers have been inspired by your fearless example. Turning to Lakshmana, Rama said, By observing various omens, I can understand that there will soon be great destruction, a slaughter of the leading monkeys, bears, and rakshasas. Let us attack Lanka immediately. Rama climbed down from Suvela mountain to review his army. He then began his march to Lanka, bow in hand, while the monkeys following him uprooted trees and mountain peaks. Soon afterward, they arrived at the city walls, and Rama encamped his army outside the northern gate. Similarly, Nila took up his position outside the eastern gate, Angada at the southern gate, and Hanuman outside the western gate. Sugriva positioned his army in between the northern and western gates. Thus, the monkeys completely surrounded by the walled city, awaiting the encounter. The Rakshasa warriors were astonished to see a seemingly unlimited number of monkeys surrounding their city. With weapons in hand, the leaders fearfully rushed to Ravana's palace to inform Ravana how the monkeys were saying the city. Ravana quickly went to a balcony to personally survey the situation. Seeing how the entire earth around Lanka had become brown, covered by the multitudes of monkeys, the Rakshasa king was struck with wonder. For a long time, Ravana stood motionless, staring at Rama, wondering what he should do next. Rama then ordered Angada to deliver a message to Ravana. Leaping into the air, Angada quickly came before Ravana, who was sitting atop the northern gate, surrounded by his ministers. Staying a slight distance from Ravana, Angada announced, "My name is Angada, nephew of King Sugriva, and heir apparent to the royal throne at Kishkinda. I have come here as Rama's envoy with his message. O king of the Rakshasas, now that all of your pious credits have been exhausted, I am going to kill you in retaliation for your atrocities against the rishis. If you do not surrender to me at once, then I shall rid the entire world of Rakshasas. Either submit to me or come before me, so that I can purify you with the onslaught of my deadly arrows. If you are unwilling to return Sita and bow down before me, then I advise you to take a good look at Lanka, for it will be your last." Hare Krishna. So, we will be winding up here for today. Devotees, if they have any questions, they can ask. Okay, there's one question here. Ravana seems to be insane not to accept the advice of many others to return Sita. What made him so obsessed to keep Sita? Was it just great lust or something more? Okay. Ravana was uh, reluctant to accept the advice of others. We we have seen in like Vibhishana also gave him advice. Sarama also, his ministers also gave him advice. He did not accept it because yeah, he was very much attached to Sita for enjoying with her. Like it was because of his material desire, because of lust. He was so much attached that he could not take the good advice of his well wishers. Uh, yeah, that was why Ravana he insisted on fighting for her. There was a recent lecture by uh, Guru Maharaj about wars and women. That many wars they are caused because of women. Uh, in Mahabharat, it was because of Draupadi. In Ramayan, we find because of Sita. So yeah, women are the cause of wars. Pumsastriya Mithuni Bhavameta. This material world is based on Pumsastriya Mithuni Bhav, the attraction between male and female. That is the binding force of material existence. So, as per Srimad Bhagavatam. So, yeah, that's why Ravana he was not willing to keep good advice, not willing to take good advice from others. Any other questions or comments? Mm, okay, thank you. Okay, so we will be winding up here, and tomorrow we will be continuing from page number, yeah, 370, paragraph number 2. Okay. वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभयेव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे